All right, let me get rid of this. Okay, well, here we go. Welcome to 2022. It's Jeff here from Home Renovision DIY live Saturday afternoon. Let's wait for a couple of responses, guys. Let me know how the video and the sound is today. We are remote. We're actually down here in St. Augustine, Florida, on a little bit of a break before we hit all the trade shows for the year. And I have no idea. Michelle, maybe you should be watching live as well.
Man,
And how is the audio?
the audio's good.
Good to hear. All right. Okay. So here I am. Guys, give me 1 second. I'm on my own with my wife today. We are trying to do 3 people's jobs. I'm going to pop out the chat. Open this up. Okay. And I think I've got this right. Only members can send messages. That would be correct. Yeah. So I am actually big shout out to Bill and Lynn, I think it is, right? Did I get that right? Or is it Lori? Lori, my bad. I knew it was an L. We're over at the Toes in Your Sand production studio. It's a sound studio down here in St. Augustine, and they were kind enough to let us use their space to do our live show today. No, I do not drum. I have no idea. And no, I'm not finally endorsed by DeWalt, but give me 2 weeks. So before we jump into all of the guts and the glory here of the subject matter today, guys, just to let you know, we are doing trade show circuit. Yeah, we got ourselves a fifth wheel trailer and headed south for the winter, and we are going to all the trade shows and going to do business for the first time in 2 years. So wish us luck that we might find something beneficial for all of you. That is the goal of the trip, but I can't share anything. No premonitions. We're going to have to wait and see. Between supply chain and shutdowns and everything else, it's been a hell of a time trying to work on your behalf, but we are doing our darndest. Quick shout out here with our latest newsletter. If you aren't aware, we do a newsletter. And the latest one, the title is the 2022 forecast. If you're not signed up for that, just go to our website. It's Jeff's Toolbox. Click the link, throw your email in there, and we can get you into that as well. It gives you all the updates. We got new website coming up. We got new formats, new blog forums. It's just going to be spectacular. My team has been working really hard to deliver better and better value and helping you guys be your best contractor ever. So that is cool. Let's just see who we got. We got Linda Vickerson here tonight, Existential Paint, and Philippe is here. That is awesome. The rules of engagement today are going to be really simple. We're going to deep dive into some pretty heavy content, but we're going to do a surface dive into a lot of it instead of a lot of information about one thing. I'm going to do a little bit of information about a lot of things. You're going to find in the world of building science and construction technology that having a good basic understanding is more important than being a rocket scientist about one thing. And funny enough, that is where we are running into all of our problems in the building systems that we're building nowadays, is one person with so much knowledge that they become useless and actually dangerous to what we're building because everyone else around them doesn't have the same capacity. So you can't build a rocket ship, right? And then expect the monkey to fly it. Same with building a house, okay? We don't have people with university degrees and engineers building the houses themselves. So we're going to touch into all of the reasons why we have failures all over the place in all kinds of different areas. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you are not a member of the channel and you haven't joined yet, that's why you can't get into the chat. Don't be frustrated. It's just so that we can manage the conversation. If you have a question that you want answered after I do my presentation, feel free to jump into a super chat and I'll be happy to answer your question. If you're a member, just ask a question. I'll be happy to answer that too. But without wasting too much time, is there anything else, Michelle? I got my wife here today in the studio. This is awesome. Hi, honey.
Hi.
Is there anything else that I need to be doing before I jump into this?
As long as you wrote on, I read all their notes.
Yes, the last note. This is the first live show of 2022, so Happy New Year. Let's jump into this. Oh, let me go just check here. We got a bunch of other members jumping in. Melanie's here. Sandy is here. Wow, that's awesome, guys. Thanks for joining us. Joel's back in the chat, and Chrissy's here as well. Matthew is here as well. My goodness. All right, guys. Well, I'll let you all chat and have some fun. I'm going to put this presentation together starting right now. Look at that. We're 5 minutes in and now I have actually something to say of value. Today we are going to answer the following really interesting questions. Number one, what is the building code? For everybody who is not aware, there are rules that we're supposed to follow. And then we're going to talk about how did we get to here where we have national building codes. Understanding the history of how we got to the building code might help you understand what's wrong with your house because it's relatively a new concept in human existence to actually have a legislative body helping people to build their homes. It's the most important thing you've got in life or you die. And we finally decided we should actually have some rules. And that's good. Do we know what we are doing yet? Is the third question. I know that might sound kind of stupid to ask. I mean, we've been to the moon, we go to space. Hell, we can live underground. We can live at sea, but do we know how to build a house? $1 million question. I'm going to say yes and no, and then we'll dive into what problems we're facing, and then we're going to talk about what are the unknowns moving forward. What are the problems we're running into, even today, as smart as we are as a society? What are the dumb things we're doing, and what are the problems we're going to run into in the future? Because the one thing that's constant about homes is what we expect as far as performance from the home is constantly changing. Okay. And we're going to dive into all this information, explain all that. So let's just jump right back to number one. Boom, boom, boom. All right. What is the code? I'm going to try my best today to not get frustrated or irritated or outrageous or outlandish. But I am going to tear a few strips off of mainstream television because there are a lot of misconceptions in people's brains that have been planted there by marketing and catchy phraseology. What is the code? First of all, it's just a group of rules that govern fire safety. Okay. One of the reasons we have a code is back in San Francisco, they had a massive fire and they realized, wait, we have no rules for building to keep these things from burning the entire city down. Maybe that would be a good idea. So they started to develop their own code. You'll see that if you look back on the history and you do a real deep dive, places like Louisiana, the Big Easy, they had a building code real early, partly because they decided to build a wall to hold out an ocean and then build. So they figured maybe we should have some rules for that. They ultimately ended up failing, but that's another story. We also have rules to govern structural integrity. And the joy of this is that we didn't even have a national building code in the United States until the early 1990s. They started talking about it. So you might think there's a few buildings out there that are unsafe, and you'd be right. In Canada, we actually had a building code nationally in 1941. It was basically designed, and I'm going to get way ahead of my notes here, but it was basically designed because there was a reconstruction effort after the war and heading into the war. And they realized after the First World War, we needed to have rules in order to build fast. And so that was probably we're a couple steps ahead of the code. And even though we're behind on the science, which is kind of odd. Another reason we have rules for building is because of the assemblies. Okay. I'm not going to dive in too much here. We need to work on having quality air. All right. And longevity. No sense building a house with a 20-year mortgage that only lasts 14 or 18 months. So according to that rule, in order to put a mortgage on a building, we should have a building that we have an expectation that's going to stay around a little while. And as long as we have rules that we follow to build that house, then the expectation can be met and then the money can be lent and it makes the world go round. Now, we also have code rules for new product development. All right. If you ever read the code book, you realize it'll say something like, if wood is in direct contact with a masonry, generally speaking, concrete, then you need to use pressure treated lumber. That's a code. That's one of the rules. So you'll see that a lot. But the other rule could also be if you put a non-permeable barrier between the wood and the concrete, you don't need pressure treated lumber. Well, and if that's the case, that's just one example of two different options for your building technology that people are still fighting about today that have been in the code for a long time. Okay. I know there's a lot of fighting going on because some things work and some things don't. Now, what is minimum code? Get this all the time. My God, if I had $1 for every time someone was on TV bashing the minimum code to pump themselves up, Listen, minimum code is basically the rules that you follow to build a house. That's code. It's not minimum. There's no such thing as minimum and maximum code. There's no 14 different varieties. There's one code. Okay? So don't buy the science of someone saying, "Oh, that's just barely minimum code." Yeah, that's like saying, that newborn baby is barely alive. That's just stupid. Let's not go there. All right? There's one code, you follow it. If you don't, you're in trouble. So, leads me to the question. What in the hell is doing it right? All right? We're going to answer that question today. And that would be me. I thought I had the vibration off on this little box, but apparently I still get YouTube notifications. How about that? All right. We're going to talk about one other thing too, because we have a building code, which is assemblies, what to do, products, steps, procedures, rules to govern development, structure, fire, safety, all that stuff. And then we also have standards. And those are different. Okay. Yes, I'm wearing eyes today, if you noticed, right? Yeah, this is so I can read. I'm not going blind. I'm just going blind. Make sense? Okay. We have codes, which are rules for building stuff, and we have standards, which is to the quality that we build stuff. So you've got to be able to separate building in accordance with the rules and building in accordance with the quality standards of the trade. And those are two totally separate issues. And what you're going to find the more you read is that the trade standards are much, much higher than the code standards. And there we have it. Now there's the great big light bulb for everybody who bought a huge production home that was built in 89 days and 3 minutes. Yes, there's a big difference between quality and quantity. And we're going to talk about that as well in this, because that is a huge issue in what's going on. All right. That was what is the building code introduction a la Jeff style. Hopefully that didn't go over anybody's head, and it might have prompted you to have a few questions, and that'll be good. We are not going to do any questions right at the moment, but we're going to talk about number 2. How did we get here? And in case you're wondering, no wine tonight. White Claw, don't ask me. It's grapefruit. It's vodka. It's actually pretty darn delicious. Question number 2. How did we get here? Well, I got a brief synopsis because I'm not going to bore you with all the details. And we're different in Canada and USA, but we do have some similarities. One, understand that North Americans started building like they did in Europe. Okay? Made sense? We came from there, largely speaking, as the colonization process happened. And a lot of our building technology was basically masonry, stone, lots of brick, stucco. And that had been used for a lot of years, thousands of years, actually. So we had a lot of confidence in that. And we got going in North America, and we started using that process. And here's the problem with that. It was a little slow, guys, for growth. Can't build a new country when it takes 3 to 5 years to build a house. And we quickly decided we'd start doing different things, like sod. There's a lovely dwelling. You ever smell rotten sod before? That'll make you want to puke in your shoes, eh? Anyway, that was temporary to get through the winter. But we did run into this idea, well, there seems to be a heck ton of trees around here. Let's cut them all down and figure out a way to use them. And so they started building homes very similar to their barn structure in Europe, okay? Which were supposed to be temporary structures, by the way. Now, we went to the all-wood construction technology, generally speaking, because of the speed that we could produce it. That's all there is to it. All right. Europeans on this channel all the time are always bashing our construction technology, and I get a kick out of it. The fact is that a lot of people in Europe, they're living in the same house as their great grandparents did. Okay. They don't move around. They have a home. It's paid for. They got the dirt. It's their piece of stone, and they live there, and that's cool. I don't have any problem with it. It's a different way of living. But out here, we have a lot of people that change careers, change location, chase the work, migrate all over the country, come down to Florida for a few months every year. And big shout out to Robbie. Cheers, just joined the membership program. And if you're not a member, what the heck are you waiting for? Join the membership program, folks. It'll change your life. And if you got questions, we can help you out in our forum. You can send me pictures and I'll answer your questions. And yes, I'm much better at that recently now that I've got my house sold and I have my life back in order. So back to the history. Okay, we basically, if you look at our construction technology, in the north, we went to wood with a brick facade. In the south, we actually built with stone still, all right, and do like a stucco facade, largely with a wood roof. Okay, found that very fast, and that's great. It's good to be able to build as fast as people want to trickle in here. Basically, back around the turn of the century, we're talking 1900 and a half. There's very little insulation, right, if any. But there wasn't a need for it because the heating source was a virtual blast furnace sitting in the middle of the kitchen. And it heated the whole house and melted the snow for about 3 feet from the house. And there was never an issue about being too cold in the wintertime. So we didn't have as much of a concern about building technology. Back then was basically, please don't catch on fire and please don't fall on my head while I sleep. That was really easy to achieve because there's enough history of our building technology at that point to satisfy that. Now, we had very beefy wall assemblies, okay? It was all wood. So if water made it into the house and there's no insulation and there's no air barrier, there was a lot of air blowing through the house. Well, if you're blowing air through a house and there's nothing in the way, and it can blow in one room and out the wall of the other room, you have a nice dry house. And if your house is dry and the wood can get dry, it doesn't rot. So the houses last a long bloody time. My farmhouse, 1880, we just finished the renovation. We only had one spot where we had any moisture issue. That's where the one roof met the other roof, had ice damming, okay? Problem solved. We put a different kind of roof on that house. Now the water is not infiltrating the roof. The house will stay nice and dry. Piece of cake. All right. Now, here we go. Major changes in building code, wartime. Okay. Back in wartime, Canada, we saw the need for rebuilding and the efforts, and we had baby booms. We had, in the United States, you had basically 3 different sections of the country, and they had 3 different organizations, and they were all private, and they all had staff, and they all had publications, and they put out books and codes, and you cut the country in half, north and south, and the whole west side had one code. So everyone in Southern California and Northern Dakota had the same building code. Well, that makes a lot of bloody sense. And then you had the east side cut north and south, and the south people had a code and the northern people had a code, and that actually made sense. And then there was Illinois that didn't have a code at all. They were on their own little track there. Back in the early days, code was very political. It was very shoulder rubbing. It was, hey, I got a brand new product, Fred. Since you're in charge of the building code, you think you can make allowance in the code for me and we'll make a lot of money and I'll give you a kickback. Yeah, that happened. You know it. And as a result, for a lot of years, a lot of people resisted the idea of amalgamating a code into one central concept and theme and having any responsibility. They liked the freedom. And generally speaking, the last 100 years, houses have been built in a capitalist society with one goal. Okay? Keeping you so comfortable. No, making money for the builder. All right, big surprise? Hope not. There are some major forces that drive the code development, okay? Natural disasters, like San Francisco, we talked about the fire, okay? Hurricanes, flooding, right? These are really obvious, natural disasters, right? We also have consumer demand. The faster we want to build, the more performance we want from a house. We want hot tubs. We want a bathroom in every corner of the house. We want walk-in showers. All of these things change the building code because we demand more and more from a house. We used to just have a shoebox with a gable roof. It was a perfect design. It's 1,000 square feet for a family of 6. Yeah. Irony is that was about almost 100 years ago. And now we're talking about going back to that design because it's actually one of the most energy efficient ways to live, and having a smaller space and a smaller footprint is more affordable to live like that. I don't know if we'll ever get there. But anyway, another factor that drove code changes was lobbyists. Most people never knew this, but the code was actually, I'm going to take you out for dinner, Fred. We're gonna wine and dine you, and you're going to change the code so that I can make money. Son of a gun. And you thought that Washington D.C. had it all squared away, and it was only their problem. No, sirree. Some of the most important things that drive our economy are lobby driven, and of course, product development. Right? Like you can't invent a better way to do something without the code reflecting it. Now, you probably had to spend some money on lobbyists. And that gets into one of the reasons why we have a national building code is because in the old days, you had 3 groups in the United States plus Canada, and all the provinces were doing their own thing as well. So you'd have to spend time and money and grease in every one of these offices all over North America to get your product approved. And then once it's approved, then you can talk about distribution. But no one's going to put it on their shelf. It can't be sold in their province, state, or territory. And so the need to have these codes were very, very important. All right. Yeah. Let me just check my notes because I could bunny trail on this stuff all day long. Right. Okay. So everybody had their own codes as recently as the 90s. Early 90s, the 3 leaders of the 3 regions got together and selflessly, for whatever reason, decided to join forces and make one national building code. It was like 1998 when Illinois, I think, joined the building code. Cheers to Chicago. Like, dude, I was married. I had 4 kids in 1998, and that's when you decided to join? Anyway, I'm not gonna go there because I like breathing and I don't need cement shoes. But the point is, that's really fascinating when you think about it. 1941 in Canada, we revised it largely in 1975. Everybody pretty much adopted it. Okay. So it's a relatively new concept in human existence for a developed nation, okay, that has already been through 2 world wars to then have a national building code a generation or 2 later. Fascinating. One of the reasons why the code had to happen, and I'll be honest with you, I'm going to jump ahead on my notes just a bit. Our rate of expansion was massive, right? And this goes back to the European concept of, oh, your houses are made of paper. Maybe, but like Germany is like one of the largest countries in Europe, if not the largest. And since 1960, they've only gone from 65 to 80 million population. Okay. In the same time period, the United States went from 150 to 355. So you might consider the idea of building stone houses at 3 to 5 years a house not feasible with that kind of growth. Just saying. Okay. Now, that was question number 2? How did we get here? That's a brief synopsis, folks. Feel free to Google, dive in, learn all you want. The point is how we got here, and this is my own personal belief, the 3 guys that were ahead of that building code regions all had skin in the game. They all knew about something that was going to change in the marketplace rather dramatically. And I think they just got organized and got paid off. But that's just me. Why else would you give up that much power? We haven't seen good men like that since they started in the United States. Lord knows we haven't seen anything like that in Canada in a long time. Yep, you heard it from me first. All right. Number 3, do we know what we are doing yet? Well, let's put it this way. We don't have a bloody clue what we're doing. Okay? I'm going to answer it this way. The adaptation of new technology. I'm going to take you through a little history tour here. 1960. Okay, before 1960, we were building like Europeans. Nothing new here. Nothing to see. No change, no problem. Okay? You can go to Prague today, go through the old town, right? And it looks a lot like the original Quebec City, old Montreal, right? A lot of buildings down here in St. Augustine, they all look the same. Yeah. This technology is not new, okay? So we just couldn't build them fast enough. Now, and it wasn't until about almost 1960 where we really made some changes. Like, yeah, we went to more wood frame earlier on. And in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, everybody's building really dramatic structures, lots of dormers and valleys and hips, and they're having all kinds of architectural features. And if you're in renovation world today and you have one of those houses, good luck trying to actually insulate that sucker. It's a nightmare. So give up. If you ask me, they should all be torn down because they're useless. Holy cow, that'll upset some folks, I think. But it's true. Like 1960, we added thin set. And we pretty much sorted out plumbing. I've renovated so many houses in my career that I have seen at least 11 different plumbing pipe styles underneath the foundation of a house. Everything from fiberglass, like looks like a broken arm cast, piping. I mean, it's just amazing the products you'll see. Everybody was experimenting, and everybody experimented and got approval in their region or their state or their province, or just did it to try it and then tried to pay people off to get added to the code. And there was a huge rush. Don't forget, post-war, people got married and went to work. A lot of them went back to school. And for the first time, we were pumping out educated folks who were engineers, like mad dogs. So in the 60s, everybody's graduated university. They got brains now. We're educated economy. We're industrial revolution. We're pushing the envelope of physics and chemistry. And when they were developing products left, right, and center, hand over fist. At the time, it seemed like dramatic, right? They'd get 10 or 15 new products a year, and it was mind-blowing trying to deal with what to do with that. Now, thin set was one of them. In the world of tile, thin set is to laying tile what space travel is to having a horse. I mean, it is light years away from each other, but they do the same thing. They go from A to B, okay? The old school way of laying tile, you'll have a house built in the 1940s, and if you tear up that tile, that mosaic tile in the bathroom, you're going to have the floor is 3 inches lower than the rest of the floor in the whole house. What the heck, right? They put down a little bit of craft paper there and threw in 3 inches of cement and pressed the tile into the cement. There's no reinforcement mesh or nothing, but it worked. That's how they laid tile. That's how they laid tile in the chapels in Italy. That's how most of Europe, those old houses have got those tile floors everywhere. It's just sand and Portland cement, and that's it, right? And that distributes all the weight, and it's such a good job of distributing the weight and the load of people walking. Nothing ever cracks. You can go to these old churches that are 3,000 years old. No cracks in the floor. And we opted out from that technology to thin set because it was so much faster. God love it. Thin set was so much faster. And every time you needed 1,000 square feet of tile, you could be guaranteed over the next 5 years, you're going to lay 2,000 square feet of tile because it didn't work. People were replacing floors still today. The number one callback on a construction site is bad tile work. Not because the tile installer is bad, not because the tile's bad, not because the thin set's bad, but because houses still aren't built to be done with thin set except for specific conditions. And if you don't meet those conditions, it fails. It's sensitive stuff, right? It's really sensitive stuff. It's like shaving. As long as you're going down, you're fine. But if you go sideways, just slice your face open. Tile is very, very sensitive stuff. And it shouldn't be left to people who got a 3-minute course at Home Depot and then just let loose in their home. All right? Now, well, we have another member. Got a shout out to Yinzer. I got to pay more attention to the chat here. All right. All right. Thanks, baby. So 1960, we argued over plumbing. Everybody figured it out. And still today, we have PVC, ABS, and copper and cast and some fiberglass still in homes today. Water supply, we now have PEX A, B, and C. We have copper. We got CPVC. There's still a lot of different materials being used in a lot of different ways. And a lot of these applications make sense. Like you can't use PEX in the sun because the UV rays destroy it. So you got to have something else. And if you're running your water line a half an inch from the surface like you do down in Texas, then you're going to want to have a different product. I get it. Now, so there is no one way to build something. There's no right way. You have to take into your geography and your weather, all these different things, your soil conditions. Okay. Now, the biggest next advancement was in the 70s. We went to copper wire and got rid of that old, what was the crap we had before? Aluminum. All right. Aluminum expands and contracts like crazy. And if you ever bought a car in the last recent while, you realize that they combine aluminum parts with different metal alloys so that everything expands and contracts at different rates so that the car is guaranteed to destroy itself. It's good business. We got rid of aluminum wiring. Caused a lot of fires. Okay. And we went to copper. So that was back 1970, 1980. Most of that transition happened. In and around the same time, we got rid of asbestos. That was another great adventure. Okay. Those are really the only two marketable major changes in construction. From 1960 to 1990 to almost 2000, those were the only two things that really, really, really changed. Plus the fact that we figured out how many nails should go in a board, how big a board should be to actually carry load, and how to build decks and porches so that when people sat on them to have a wine party, they didn't collapse and kill everybody underneath. We still can't seem to get that straight, but those are the only major changes, okay? What I'm talking about is a really slow curve. Slow curve. Thousands of years. Oh yeah, thin set. Boom, boom. All right. Thin set. And we get rid of the wiring. And we got this other thing, no more asbestos. Now, if you put this on a graph, the last 2,000 years, it's almost flatline. It's like dead. And in the last 20 years, we've had a mountain of production of brand new technology. Holy cow. You should see the patents. Unbelievable. I'm going to the trade shows in a couple weeks. I'm telling you right now, half the people at their trade show are there with a new product, looking for support. Yeah, half. Now, let me get back to my notes. I'm going to go crazy. I talked about Germany and USA. Okay, that was number 3. What was my thing? Did I actually lose my paperwork? That is amazing. Like, that is such a Jeff thing to do. I'm doing a live show, and I lost my paperwork. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You stole my paperwork. Thanks, baby. The question was, do we know what we're doing yet? Let me answer that this way. We know what we were doing. Okay? On this channel, I'm a big proponent of buying a 1980 home and then remodeling it, because everything about a 1980 home was built knowing what they were doing and what would be the result of their actions. Cheers, Zinder. Welcome to the membership program, my friend. We knew if we did this, this was the result. And so we built these homes and everything's fine. And so you can go in there now, confidence, because it was still flatline technology, right? Okay, aluminum to copper. Woo, how exciting. It was still a cable. It still got a ground wire. It's not that big a deal. Getting rid of asbestos, it's irrelevant to you. So if you buy a 1980, you don't have any. Great. So that means you don't have the problem. So it's so easy to remodel from there. But you start buying into newer houses, I'm telling you right now, now you're looking at some different stuff. And we'll get into that in a minute. But do we know what we're doing? No. Do we know what we were doing? Yes. Okay. I'm going to go into this a little bit more detail in my rant as soon as I answer the 4th question, which was somewhere around here. What are the unknowns moving forward? Bum, bum, bum. Yeah. What are the unknowns? Okay. Building Science 101. Let's get into a couple little science stuff. Fact, we are under an incredible amount of pressure as a construction industry to build super fast and to build more energy efficient. Okay. And we also are trying to do that with a retiring workforce at a rate of 2 people join the workforce for every 5 that leave. Okay. Keep in mind that these people that are joining the workforce are subjugated to largely an education system that says if you don't go to university, you have no value. Am I preaching to anybody out there yet? It's been that way for a long time, okay? I went to school. When I was in grade 9, we had 2 choices. Have a life and go to university, or you're a bum. Get out of here in 4 years instead of 5 and go flip burgers so I can have dinner on my way home. They didn't talk to us about options if we didn't go to university. I never finished my 5th year. I was on the way to go to become a doctor, for God's sake. Nope, got married, had babies instead. That's fine. Love my life choice. I wouldn't change it for the world. But the point is this, when I had to leave high school to go and raise a family, no one said, hey, there's choices and options. So I ended up being a short order cook for a few years. Well, I tried to find options. I almost didn't even have an option because most jobs required grade 12 and I was missing a bloody English credit because I didn't like Shakespeare. Yeah, that's a personal thing. I just really never got into it. Some people like horror, some people like comedy. I didn't like Shakespeare. I had to take 3 or 4 years of that crap. And to be or not to be, well, I just like the hell with it was really my answer. So I didn't get my grade 12, and so I didn't have a job option. I couldn't become a welder because I was in a city with a lot of bikers, and bikers were welders, and I didn't know any bikers, and I wasn't on the short list of biker sons to get a welding job. So that was pretty much the only option, right? Burgers and fries or welding. Anyway, listen. When it comes to building science, do we know what we've been doing? Yes. Do we know where we're going? Kind of. But here's the problem. The people that are driving the ship and making code and making decisions and moving our course forward are way ahead of the advancement of the capacity of our workforce. There's not enough training going on. Okay? And I'll prove it to you. It's this easy. How many people have seen Schluter Systems products available in local retail? Raise your hands. Yes, 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 yes. And do they offer any training on the product? I know it's almost funny, isn't it? But in my business, Schluter actually would pay for my hotel and my meals to spend a weekend with them to take a course, introductory course to learn how to use the product. And then there was a second course to take to do advanced, to do those linear drains. Okay. But I owned a business and I was going to install for them. And they found it necessary to put me in a classroom with a really good instructor and pour stuff in my head for like 8 to 16 hours altogether to learn how to use their product. But you can just go down to the Home Depot and buy it and stick it in your house all by yourself. Good luck with that. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I don't even have 16 hours of Schluter video yet. I swear to God, I'm going to try to talk to them this year. I'd love to do a Schluter course for residential people here on YouTube with one of the Schluter reps. But they're a little tricky to work with because they're really hesitant to tell you how to do it because then they gotta back up their warranty if you do it right, if something goes wrong. Yikes. We don't want to go down there. Okay. MJ, welcome to Money in the Bank. Okay. I'm not ready for questions yet, Chrissy, but I'm going to just dive in. Please don't ask any more questions, guys, for a few minutes. But I'm going to lose you in the chat, and I don't want to have to find you later. Chrissy, you're keeping notes? Yeah. Oh, baby, you're awesome. Okay, so on with the show. So let's get back to the problem. We want more energy efficient homes. We want them faster. We don't have enough people joining the workforce, and we're complicating what we're doing by two different directions. More efficiency and if you want a more efficient house, you've got to stop air movement. We talked earlier about when air moves, it dries it all out, right? We have 2 seasons in almost every house that we have in North America. A season where the house gets wet and a season where it gets dry. There's a rainy season and a dry season. Up north, we call it summer and winter, right? Down here in Florida, you got spring and fall. It's very normal. And so most construction technology for where you live is designed, the house is actually designed, it's built with permeable materials, which means water vapor can pass through it, okay? We try to build our house so that we can follow the following rules. When it rains, the rain doesn't get into the walls, into the ceiling, into the attic. It doesn't penetrate the exterior layer, okay? And generally speaking, that works if your house has got a house wrap, some sort of an air barrier. So even if it's windy, it keeps most of the rain out. Or there's some system design that if water gets behind your facade, it can drain. There's an airspace and it can just run out and empty out of the bottom. Which leads me to another point real quick, guys. If you got brick houses, don't plug up the holes in the brick at the bottom course because it's ugly. That's how water gets out. And if you plug up those brick holes and you get water in behind your brick, okay, and it builds up and you get an inch of water creates 45 pounds per square inch of hydrostatic pressure pushing in and out. It's going to force water into your building past your OSB. It's going to destroy your house. So I know those little holes might bother you. You might get the odd spider living in there, but trust me, that's a better option. Now, let's get back to this. Energy efficient houses mean no more air movement. Okay. You've all heard about the blower test. They put a door with a fan and they put pressure in the house and they see how well sealed your house is. There's all kinds of new technology, right? Mostly for billionaires. And they're showing it all over the country. Look how wonderful this technology is. Yay, our houses aren't going to leak air anymore. I once heard a guy say this: every house is built in relationship to a position of how close they are to a cliff. Okay. And the more airtight you build your house, the closer to the cliff you just put your home. You have to deal with air tightness and water management inside the home with the same intensity at the same time. The minute you don't have air leaking, you also don't have moisture traveling. And a lot of people would say that's a good thing. But remember, most of our water that we deal with is coming from outside, and our buildings are designed to shed it and to run it away. So when you do have moisture in the building, it's from cooking, from breathing, from using the shower and having a really lousy fan, or having an old house with no fan at all. These are sources of moisture. These are a problem. Or you have a foundation that's not waterproof, so your concrete's full of moisture and it's constantly wicking up through the walls. All these different sources of moisture you've got to manage. Or you've got a really old house and your basement's just bloody well humid. Well, your house is constantly absorbing all that moisture and redistributing it to the outside because it has air leakage. The tighter you make the house, the less it can breathe, we call it. Okay? And this is the argument in the industry for a long time. People are like, oh, we got technology now. We don't need to have a house that breathes. We'll just seal her up tighter than the drum. Well, if you rely on physics with understanding what's going on with water and how to deal with it, then you can insulate. But if you don't understand physics and how to deal with water, then you shouldn't add more insulation to your home. It's not a fix. It's not a be all and end all. You can actually cause more damage to your home by adding more insulation if you don't also manage water at the same time. Okay? That's why it's an assembly. It's a system. Real quickly, let's just talk about water because these are some points that you might want to know. Water comes in 4 different ways. Just blew your mind there, didn't you? Wait a minute. I went to science. There's water, there's vapor, and there's ice. Right? Yeah, there's also something in building technology we call film. All right? It's little molecules of water that sit on the surface of a material that's porous, that isn't even visible. It's not water, but it's not vapor. It's somewhere in between. Okay? Water doesn't follow the laws of gravity. A lot of people might think it does. So if I put a roof on a house, the water hits it, falls off, the house is safe. Well, as long as there's no wind, that might be correct. Water is what feeds the leaves in the canopy of the forest. Now, a tree doesn't have a heart to pump it up there. So, how do you suppose the water makes it to the leaves? And if you say it's, well, when it rains, that's the wrong answer. It's called kind of like the siphon effect, right? It's capillary effect. The grain of the tree acts like a tube and is really, really tiny. And so water will actually, it's so impressed with itself. It likes to bond to itself. And it can actually climb straight up hundreds of feet in the air without any extra pressure. Just because there's no water above it, it'll reach to make more constantly. And that's what actually happens in a tree to feed the leaves. And you cut that tree down, it managed to feed itself when it was alive, doing nothing. And then we cut them into sticks and we build our house with it standing up. And we think if the bottom of that wall that gets wet, it's not going to be a problem. It'll suck it up through the sticks just the same as it did when it was growing in the forest. Capillary reaction called wicking a lot of times, right? Cheers, Chrissy. I see you. Now here's the deal. We've got to deal with air movement, which is good because if you stop the air, you can stop the infiltration of moisture. But if your moisture problem now becomes from the inside and you can't dry your assembly out, then you've got to find a new way to solve that problem. Okay? We got all kinds of issues going on with technology. We're gonna modify this. Oh, and we learned something bad happened. We modify this. Classic example. Okay, look at building science like medicine. We call doctors doctors because they got a lot of education, not because they actually know the answer to the problem. They're learning. They're practicing. They have a practice. Building science is the same way. We're practicing. Okay. Now, if you ask most doctors today, they're quite comfortable with performing things like an appendectomy or fixing a broken arm. That's 1980s construction technology to them. Okay, that's stuff they've done a million times. It doesn't scare them. It's a piece of cake. It's boring. It's old news. But man, they're cutting edge. They just can't wait to stick a probe somewhere or shove a pipe in your artery and blow something up in your heart. They love trying new stuff. But most of the new stuff kills more patients than it saves. And in the same world, building science acts like that. If we stay with stuff that works, yeah, I know you're not going to save a lot of money on your energy bill, but your house isn't going to blow up. It's not going to rot out. Now, one quick example, and then I'll get into the rest of number 4. In the world of stucco, we use stucco a lot. Okay, and there's a building assembly, and we used to have plywood on the outside of a house, and then 15-pound paper. This is tar paper, and that's nailed to the wall. And then we would put on some sort of a mesh, and then we'd scrape stucco on it, and it's very wet. And when the wet hit the tar paper, it would swell, and then the stucco would dry in the mesh, and then afterwards the tar paper would dry out, and it'd leave an airspace. So you got a house, you got the wind-driven rain, stucco absorbs moisture, fine, it cools up, there's a condensation action that happens back in that airspace a lot of times, and water drifts down that cavity, and everything's fine. Well, at some point in the building code, some genius went from plywood to OSB, which is a much weaker wallboard, and they really need to pay attention to keeping those things dry. Okay? And it didn't cause a problem. Oh, okay, great. We're fine. So they keep making houses, years go by. And then somewhere along the line, some genius took the 15-pound felt. Well, it doesn't weigh 15 pounds anymore. They made it thinner. Just like they did with your Skittles and they gave you the same box with like 10% less Skittles and charged you more money for it. This is one way that the economy works to make more money, right? They sell you the same damn product, but they cheap out on you. Well, now this 15-pound felt weighs 10 pounds and it doesn't swell anymore. So after the drying is over, there's no airspace. And now you got homes that are 2 years old, rotten right out. Nasty smells, bugs and infestation of mice and mold all over the place. Brand new homes. Guess who's getting sued? The guy that built it. Wait a minute. The doctor did the same thing he'd been doing for years. That's why most contractors have what we call malpractice insurance. They use a different name. But basically, the code failed them. The rules changed, the product changed, and no one really took enough time to retest the assemblies. That's just one little example, okay? Tens of thousands of homes with that failure in the last few years. I know. What about PEX? PEX came out the first time it came out. It was exciting, right? Woo, great plumbing problem. It's going to solve all of our problems. And it failed miserable and tons of houses flooded out. All right. Class action lawsuits all over the place. They made a couple modifications, and now PEX plumbing is actually safe. But do you understand that they're experimenting with you and your home and your money? This is why I'm not on the cutting edge. This is why I'm not teaching building science. I don't want to teach stuff to you that hasn't been proven by time. All right? Okay. Rock, check your focus on your camera. Oh, dude, that would be a great idea. It might even just be the upload strength isn't all that great today. I am on the road, and so it might be coming and going a little bit. We're going to all just suffer through this together, but that's okay. Okay. I'm going to go through my list of problems, make sure I hit them all. The more thermal that we want, the less air movement we have. We have to deal with those problems together at the same time. Okay. Today, we find out that more and more and more science going in building technology is chemistry, not physics. All right. Whenever you can solve a problem with physics, do it, because physics are laws and chemistry are applications. Chemistry is subject to integrity, subject to like caulking. I'm going to caulk a joint. All right. Great. Oh, I ran out of caulking. Oh, there's no more around. Oh, the store's closed. It's 5:30. But the boss said get the cladding on today. All right, what the hell? It's just only 3 inches. No big deal. And this kind of stuff goes on all the time. All right. And no one's inspecting every stage of construction. So this happens all the time. You can't leave the integrity of the builder as the limiting factor whether or not your house is going to destroy itself or not. And I'll tell you why. Because you expect too much from a guy working on a construction site. All right. He didn't go to school. Society doesn't want to pay these guys very good money. And so you get what you pay for. Okay. I know this because I drive around and I don't see people using their signals. I don't see people following the rules when they're driving. I see 95% of society disregarding basic rules on the road when they're driving a car. Thousands of pounds of steel and glass that kill people every day. You don't follow the bloody rules. Why in the hell do you think that a construction worker should follow all of the rules all the time too? That's such hypocrisy. That's why I think you're your best builder, because at least when you're in the car and you're driving, you're going to try to do the damnedest that you don't go and run into a bloody tree. Same when you're building. You're your best contractor. You're the only one who gives a damn about your house. So maybe you should be the one building it. All right. Society isn't ready for the changes. Where we're going? No, we're not ready for the changes. We have a political agenda to save the planet, and we're not putting any money into it. We're teaching people how to be more aggressive with insulation. We've changed the insulation rule before we taught people how to keep their house dry. Backwards. Okay? When water gets into your assembly and your wall gets wet, it's got to have a way to dry out. If it doesn't, it goes moldy. Mold will kill you. So why are we changing the code to make everything more thermally effective when the houses are slowly getting wetter and wetter and wetter every year? If your house got wet and dried out, and you change the insulation, and it gets wet, and it kind of dries out, maybe 85 or 90% of what normal. Well, then it gets wet again, and the next time, well, because it got wet the same amount, it wasn't really dry yet. Next time it dries out, it's only dried out 80%. You get to a point where the relative humidity inside your house gets high enough that mold grows and proliferates. And you don't even see it coming because it can be 5 or 6 years after you change your insulation in your house. You don't have a clue. All right? So you need to understand the basics. We're going to dive deeper into assemblies that work and how to work all this, but not today. But we are going to get into all of this stuff, okay? If you're doing major changes, just think 1980. Try to keep things simple, all right? Don't get too crazy with technology. You don't want to be a guy experimenting on your own house. There's too many things going on. Here's the other thing. In order to satisfy code, you got to satisfy the couple little lines, okay? In this condition, you got to meet this condition and use this product in this condition. Amen. Cheers, go ahead. Well, a guy will develop a product that meets all those conditions. Safe to use. Is it really, though? Like, am I allowed to cut a hole in the floor of my car and glue brake pads onto my shoes and just use my feet to stop my car? Because if the code is written so loosely that as long as I'm using a good quality ceramic brake shoe, I can stop the car any way I want to, that's insanity. Like, you can't go Fred Flintstone. But here's what happens. They'll design a product, and they won't put all the information together in a package that's readily available how to use the product. Like a Schluter system, okay? They'll give you hints and tips, but they don't give you no 16-hour, 2-day course on the weekend. And so we assume we know what we're doing. And I'm not vilifying Schluter. Thousands of products have the same problem. And then we think we know what we're doing. We go ahead, we move forward, and we sit back and go, yeah, I think everything's okay. And you got lucky. Here's the other problem. You got this product, and you've changed this science. We've changed this thermal. We've changed this water management system. We've changed this grading. Oh, we're finishing the basement now for the first time. All these different changes, but they don't have any paperwork from the companies, all these new products, and how to integrate their product with other systems. Only how to integrate it with itself. Nobody's spending money in research, okay? So when the felt guy changed the thickness of the felt, he didn't have to report to anybody. He didn't have to retest the product. That's just one example. It's happening every day. There are probably in the last 2 years, well over 2,000 products that have tried to get mainstream, and probably at least 1,000 that have managed to be adapted into code. Most of which I don't even know about, and I don't care to know about, because you know what? I'm going to give it the old 10-year test. Because I know that a house, if it lasts 10 years without a major problem, whatever was put into that design is working. So I'm not going to go down the road of all these products that are brand new unless I can make sense of the physics. But I'm not going to trust the chemistry of a product, because that's a solution that's just too sensitive, and I can't promote it. Now, if you want to know the best way, while we're here talking about this, and then we'll jump into some questions, guys. If you want to know the best way to build a house, it's this. Shoebox. Great big rectangle, gable roof, okay? That's the best way to build a house. Throw a solar array, build it east-west. You can make it so it's almost energy neutral. You can tighten it up, seal it like a drum. A brick facade is still the best. Vinyl siding is probably second best, only because of this. And people give me a hard time about vinyl siding all the time. Vinyl siding allows air to blow in and around the joints without unlocking. Okay, so in behind that wall stays nice and dry. And it creates an environment where the house, if the walls get wet behind the house wrap, it'll dry outwards, because that cavity behind the vinyl is always nice and dry. And it actually really promotes the longevity of your house. I know it's not bulletproof, all right? But it's not too often somebody walks up to your house and puts a sledgehammer against the wall and says, "Huh, see, it's not as good as brick." Like, really? Now, brick also works really well in that way, as long as you don't plug those damn holes, okay? Vinyl is cheap and affordable, and you can do it yourself, and brick is slow. That's all I got to say on that. We get too complicated with our designs, we're in trouble. The more complicated and the more performance you want from your house, the more new bells and whistles, the more intricate all of these processes are, and all these materials are, and all these products are, we aren't tested yet, the more trouble we run into. Okay, so listen, as a DIY renovator, keep it simple. You can go back in time to 1980. All right, walls were R20, 2x6 construction, right? And if you have an attic and you got insulation, you want to throw a little bit more in there to make it a little bit warmer. That's fine. Go ahead. That's not going to change a whole lot of issues going on with your house. All right. But just make sure that you maintain an airspace directly against the roof. All right. I think that's enough. Wow. That was almost an hour.
Yep.
I did all right.
Yep.
No wonder my mouth is giving me hell. All right. Let's jump back in. Mitch, maybe you can drive me through some of these questions. All right. And I'll try to.
Need to read them out to you.
Yeah. Just read me the question, and then I'll read it out on air so everybody knows what's going on.
At Matthew Akers. Jeff, are you finally endorsed by DeWalt?
So Matthew Akers wants to know if we're endorsed by DeWalt. The answer is no. We still do not have any corporate sponsorship. Except we do have an agreement. We actually got an agreement with C2 Paint. I should bring that up real quick. Now, a lot of you people might not know C2 Paint. It's a conglomeration. It's like a co-op, a bunch of independent paint stores, okay? And they have their own formulation. And they're in Canada and US, and they're scattered abroad, and in the United States they do sell online. Okay, so if you're looking for good quality paint, I endorse them. I've been using them for years. Back when I was in the construction here, we had a company in our local area called Randall's Paints, and Randall's is great, and the people down there are wonderful, and they have great quality stuff. All right, and you paint like normal. Some paint companies are making new technology paints that require you to have a different application of the paint system. You got to paint backwards. It's very difficult to get my head around. I like the product. I like the company. And we got you guys a 20% discount right now. So feel free to check that out. Okay. They even put my face on their website. Imagine that. So that was all to make you guys a deal. I know there's a lot of trouble right now with getting good quality paint. So if you're doing a cabinet job, or if you're looking for just a really nice finish, like honestly, this stuff is amazing. Okay, it makes it affordable. All right, it's not any more expensive than Benjamin Moore. They'll ship for free. So jump right in there, okay, and get it because it's awesome. Next question.
At the thing.
At the thing.
I'm dealing with a hoarder house. Is it okay to store things such as books and board games in a plastic bin inside of an uninsulated garage?
Okay, so here's the thing. Let's talk just through the eyes of building science. Would I throw a bunch of stuff in a plastic bin and store it in a garage? Yeah, not if I'm in a humid environment though, because plastic is still porous. Okay, and so you put the books inside the house in a conditioned space. It's nice and dry, and you put the lid on and you put it in the garage. Now it's all humid outside. Well, water is going to go through that plastic bin and is going to balance out, all right, the moisture level inside the bin from outside the bin, and all those books are going to get wet. And if all the books get damp, and you run the risk of it all going moldy. If there's any mold spores in the house that you're packing up, which a hoarder house there probably is, lots of mold just floating around, you're going to trap those spores in with the books, put it in an environment where one of these days it'll be humid, and then all your books go moldy. So I would say no, don't do that. All right.
Question by new member Robbie Kerbo.
Yes.
I'm in an 80s 1900 square foot home on 10 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Houses in my small subdivision are about 750K to 1 million. I'd like to know who to find, if it is worth trying to add on to make the house equal to those around me. I guess she's thinking about ROI.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a question here. Someone's got just a boatload of dirt. They're on 10 acres and they got a 2,000 square foot home. And there's a lot of $800 to $1 million homes in the neighborhood. Apparently are bigger than her 2,000 square foot home. She wants to know, is it worth it to do an addition? That is a conversation that you need to have with a real estate agent who can put you in touch with an architect to give you a ballpark before you move forward. Because I can't see your house, and B, I don't see what your competition looks like. You might find that a 10-acre property, you could sell off 5 acres and do really well because you don't need 10 acres in a neighborhood with really expensive homes. But that's just me. The return on investment question is always very site specific. There is no rule to follow. Okay. So if your house is of comparable quality and construction and you want to do an addition, it's a great way to get return on investment. Okay. Especially in that kind of market. You are going to find that if you're not doing it yourself and you're contracting it out, it is really hard to make money. And it is really hard to get a contractor who can do this competently. That's the other thing right now. I mean, I don't know what the housing market looks like in 2 years, but that's about the timeline you're looking at contracting somebody. So for me, it's a bit of a gamble. If you're looking for a way to increase your value, I would say, first of all, take a look at separating your property and have 2 5-acre lots. I'd start there. But right now, investing in a major renovation project for me is just off the chart. There's too much chatter about the market having issues, and we're watching the stock market plummet like a rock in a pond right now. It could be a precursor. It could be just the January blahs. Who knows? But it's hard to invest in real estate unless you're doing it yourself because nobody is available to do the work. So don't lock yourself into something 2 years from now, because 2 years from now might look a lot different. There's a big possibility of volatility over the next 2 years. So if you're going to do a project, do a remodeling project, get it on the market, plan something you can do in 90 days and be done. Okay. So that you can at least mitigate your risk of being a victim of that. Anyway, don't put every dime you got into a project, guys, this year, unless you can afford to put that money in the project and then wait out the change. You know what I mean? Like if you only have 10 grand in the bank, don't put that 10 grand in your house. I know it's lousy for my channel, but that's really good advice for you. Okay. There's a really good risk that you could lose a lot of value in your home this year. And depending on your mortgage and your balance sheet and all that stuff, investing in renovations might not be a good idea unless you're planning on selling it before the market goes crazy and changes around on you, right? Look at simple projects. Get a real estate agent in there, have them do a tour, say, give me, what can I do in 30 days to put this on the market? And then we could sell it in a week. And if they don't have an answer for that, then maybe it's not a good idea to invest at all. Anyway, next.
Chrissy K sent a super chat.
Yes, Chrissy.
House built in 1990s.
Yep.
Niagara, Ontario.
Okay.
Main floor, bath, window, wall, slightly moldy, insulation.
Okay.
Moved and stud, plywood, OSB, wet and frosty. New window 10 days ago. I don't know if that's a statement or...
If she's trying to help draw my attention to the window. If you have a new window from 10 days ago and they didn't install it right and it didn't get insulated, then the frost would actually be around the window. But if you remove the insulation and the OSB is frosty, that's evidence of moisture trapped inside your wall that for some reason is trying to dry into the house. Okay? And so the cold air outside is meeting the warm air from inside your wall cavity, and there's moisture trapped there from before the wintertime. The best thing I can suggest is join my membership program for $5. Okay? Send me pictures of the outside of the house. Tell me if it's north, south, east, west facing. And I don't think the window's the culprit. A lot of times when problems happen, we take a look at the most recent change and we assume that's the cause. In my experience, 50% of the time it is, and 50% of the time it's something that's been a problem for a long time that's gone unchecked. Okay? So you can't just assume. But a wet wall underneath the window on a brand new window installation may or may not be a direct result of the window installation. I need to see up close pictures of the window installation, what kind of building it is. They might have installed the window and not sealed it properly, so water is getting in behind a brick facade, for instance, soaking the OSB, and now it's freezing into the house. And that's a possibility, right? Or if it's vinyl, it could be something completely different. I really can't tell until I can see the outside of the house. Sorry, I wish I could give you more, but that's the best investment, guys. Instead of doing a super chat, join the membership. Send me a real question with real pictures, and I'd be happy to help.
She is a member. I just messaged her.
Oh, is she? Okay. Cool.
Longtime member Clay KC.
Yes, Clay.
Thoughts on being an owner and builder? Seems very profitable.
Yeah.
2 to 3 houses, sell them in 2 years, and then build your dream house for 20% cheaper than building with a builder.
Okay, so Clay's saying, what about this idea of I'm going to go into business, I'm going to build a few houses, and then I'm going to sell them, and then I'm going to build my dream house with the profits. In theory, it works. If you have enough experience to manage the build, if you understand all the technology, and you understand how all that technology works with all of your wall assemblies and all the products that are going on, and you've read all the literature. Remember, the biggest problem that men have is we don't read instructions. Like, let's ask all the people who are builders and in the trades out there, okay? Like, if you're a tile installer, have you actually read the tile standards manual from front to end and you understand it? Raise your hand. Because there will be one guy in like 8 million tile installers who have. I'm telling you right now. We don't read instructions. So you want to take on the risk and the liability of constructing multiple homes. If you've read all the instructions and you understand all your products and all your assemblies and you understand the technology, you know your physics, you understand your chemistry, and you can build a product that isn't going to fail and then sell it and then make money and then build your own house, assuming that the market doesn't have a massive correction and you're not stuck with 3 homes that cost a lot more than they're worth, then you go right ahead. I think it's a great idea. I personally don't believe in being that aggressive. Not in today's market. I believe that if you own a house and you want to put a little bit of money into it and fix it up one room at a time, it's a nice, safe way to do things. And if you feel like the market's going to go poopy on you, then you can sell your house before that happens. Then great. because you're working on a 30-day schedule, one room at a time. But biting off a big chunk like that scares the living hell out of me right now. We just sold our house.
Woohoo.
Yoo-hoo. Guess what I'm doing with the money? Sleeping in it. Okay, I'm not doing nothing with it. I'm actually waiting for crap to hit the fan so I can enter the market at the bottom end. That's just me. I'm no guru. I don't write books on the subject, but that is what I'm up to. I am just sleeping, and I cashed in on $10 bills, so it's a bigger pile. But yeah, I'm waiting. I'm looking for opportunities. We have a church. We got content. We have no problem making videos and helping everybody out. And this year especially, we're going to be focusing largely on remodeling projects, okay? Things you can do short, sweet, and get great return, all right? In the live shows, we'll talk more about building science and how to help you all out with your problems. And speaking of which, right now, we are going to the problems, all right? Cody, cheers. Welcome to the membership program. All right. So instead of me going through all the questions and using this to find all the good content, I want everybody who's still alive out there who's watching the show, and I have no idea how many of you are, start throwing your questions live in the chat. I'll stay current as I can, okay? And we'll do it that way because there seems to be a ton of great questions here. You got 2 more on your end?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back. We got 2 more of the super chats or whatever we're going to have to catch up on.
Okay,
Got to be responsible.
This is from a new member today, Yinzer House.
Yinzer is a new member, and he had a question. Okay, go ahead.
140-year Victorian in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
Old hardwood floors on the joists, so want to put in floating plywood subfloor, then barrier, then engineered hardwood at 3/8.
Okay, 1 second. Let me bring everybody up to speed. So we're talking about a house in Pittsburgh. It's a century old, okay? And it's got hardwood floor. And the question is, the assembly is the question. Is, do I put in subfloor and then an underlayment and then engineered hardwood?
Yes.
No, don't waste your time.
He's asking, should there be an expansion gap in the plywood as well as the engineered floor?
No, don't use any plywood. Save your money. You're wasting your time. Unless your engineered floor is getting nailed. Is it floating or nailed down? We don't know.
Floating.
It's floating. If it's floating, what do you care about plywood for? You're just throwing good money after bad. You got a hardwood floor, all right? You put down an underpad and you put your engineered hardwood right over top of that. Okay? Don't waste your money with the extra step. It'll cost you a fortune. It'll force you to have to cut down all of your doors. Cut down all of your trims. And you'll be stuck with the need for having this thick flooring assembly for the rest of that house's life. Keep it simple. Just the engineered floor as a floating floor, and you're fine. And then over time, if it's necessary, that floor can be removed and a new floating floor can be installed at the same height without all those crazy modifications. All right? Cheers.
Last question that I can see, and then we can go into the newer ones.
Sure.
From David Starr. Do you
Yeah.
still need a plastic cover over a basement wall after you put a foil-backed foam board and a 2x4 framed wall and an R15 insulation batting in before you put sheetrock on?
Plastic.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the question. Here's the question about plastic.
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm going to get to this. You want to double check if the building code in your area requires plastic. There are basements from Nunavut right down to the southern part of California, and they all function differently. And all the different code requirements for insulation packages, the wall assembly is what we're talking about. If your code requires plastic, then use it. Generally, the code only requires it in weather systems somewhere around, I think it's Pittsburgh and north, give or take. Okay. As a general rule, like the 49th parallel. Okay. So that's about where. And that's basically because we spend more time heating that space in the basement than cooling it throughout the 4 seasons. That's the basic science. But double check, because just because I use plastic doesn't mean you should. I live in a colder climate with that house that I did all the work on. So it was required by code, or I could get in trouble, right? So of course I put plastic. But if you don't need the plastic, it means you're not using heating enough that it's not necessary, because you're not creating a condensation issue in your wall assembly because you're adding heat. Remember, on the other side of your insulation package is dirt, and dirt is 10 degrees in my scale. What in the, like mid 40s on the American scale. It's constant temperature. Summer and winter, it's the same bloody temperature. So if you're adding heat on the inside and you have your insulation barrier, the condensation happens somewhere in there. So whatever heat makes it through the plastic has to go there without any vapor. It has to leave the water behind. That's why it's a non-permeable layer, okay? Well, a lower permeability layer, okay? And that's the purpose of it, so that you don't get frost in the wall, creating bulk water, which creates mold. Anyway, that's the answer to that question. Let's jump into all of these. Whoo! Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of time with some of these, and then when we get near the end, we'll go a little more rapid fire. I've also got a few questions here from some folks on Instagram. We're going to see if we can bring those in as well. Okay, let's see what we got. We got lots of content here. Where can one find this tile standards manual? Okay, all the manuals in the world are online. I actually put links for the code manuals, the national building codes, in the video description today, guys. Okay, it's about $135. Oh, I actually even brought it today. Oh, hang on one second. Let me grab this here for you. Is it there? No, it's up here. All right. Boom. Here's the building code book 2021. There's a new code for 2021. I wonder why that is. They must have made a bunch of changes because they don't know what they're doing. They're still practicing. Isn't that nice? All right. So here we go. This is an illustrated code book, which means they've got drawings, pictures, charts, stuff to help you understand what the heck you're doing. If you just buy the code book, all right, you better be a computer to regurgitate that information. If you buy the illustrated handbook, you get all the information you need with pictures and drawings to understand your assembly. It is a really good learning tool. Half of this book you don't even need as a homeowner. I'll be honest with you. Half of it is fire safety. And single family homes don't have any fire safety. Almost none. And another good chunk of this is actually for soundproofing. And single family homes don't have any of that either. So right there, half the book is irrelevant to you as a single family home dweller. Okay? So you only need to learn half of this. And a good chunk of it are pictures. So that you'd be surprised how little of this you need to read. And it has, an index in the front so you can zero in on your situation that you got to deal with. But it's a great start. And for $130, I think it's a great investment if you're doing a major project. Okay? There are other code books. There's a plumbing code book. There's an electrical code book. There's a tile standards installation book. There's flooring standards installation, windows siding standard installations, and all these different things. Okay. For the most part, the world doesn't follow the standards. They follow the code. Okay. Yeah. I'm telling you the truth. Give me a break. Most guys that are in the building business, they learned it from somebody else who's been in the building business, and they learned it back in 1970, and they don't change what they're doing. So the teachers of how to do the work are the guys who used to do the work who haven't changed what they're doing based on new technology. This is normal. Don't be shocked. All right. All right. We got a little bit of love here from Brian. That's nice. Cheers, buddy. I'm going to figure out how to work my mouse now. Sean joined the membership, Money in the Bank. He's been a member for 21 months. Sean, you're a rock star, man. He's got a 78 Texas home, no insulation. Okay. We're redoing siding and want to insulate. Should we wrap the house in rigid foam or open sheathing and add bats or both? Wow. Brilliant question. Right on subject matter today, too. That's awesome. Okay. We are talking about a wall assembly question here. All right. Now, in Texas, do you get more or less than 20 inches of rain in the part of Texas where you live? Okay. And this is important because the code is broken down into these two categories. If you get, on average, less than 20 inches of rain, you can do whatever the bloody hell you want. You don't get enough rain to worry about your house. It'll dry out on its own. Okay. It's almost like waterproof. It's water damage resistant by nature based on the geography. Some parts of Texas fall into that category and some parts don't. So If you get more than 20 inches of rain, or if over the course of 10 years you have at least 2 years that you get more than the 10 inches of rain, you got to be careful how much you seal up your house and how much water you might be trapping in your building. Now, you're right. When it comes to being energy efficient and cooling your house because it's generally hot there, if you have your insulation on the outside of your wall, you don't have any thermal breaks. So it performs better. But now you're also air sealing your home when you do that. When you air seal your home, you have to make sure that you're installing your assembly, you're going to siding, so you're going to go rigid insulation, some sort of strapping, and then you also want to add a house wrap along with that. And I'll tell you why. Because every one of those nails that you use for the strapping to go through the insulation into the OSB, all right, become a route for water to follow that gets in behind the siding. So you've got to make sure you wrap all of that wood in a house wrap, okay? Or at least put the house wrap on first, bare minimum. That's just me. Since you're doing a siding job, it makes sense to insulate from the outside. Okay. And really, what you're dealing with, generally speaking, is sun. I would even put a foil faced insulation panel on. Okay. Because that deals with the radiation effect of the sun and it bounces it back out. It's going to be really energy efficient for you. As long as you maintain that airspace between the siding and the insulation, just a little bit. Siding basically creates its own airspace because when it's windy, it moves. Okay. The wind blows in and around behind it. So you're going to be fine. You don't actually have to have strapping to put siding on, but you're going to need to use a really nice long nail, right? So if you use a 2-inch piece of insulation and you're putting siding into OSB, you're going to need a 3-inch nail to hang that. Anyway, that's the long and short of it. Just consider if water gets past that insulation, what happens to your house? That's the trick, right? So you got to want to have a nice non-permeable layer and you want to make sure you got air conditioning, okay? As long as you got air conditioning inside your house, either insulation technique is going to work fine. As long as you are wrapping up your house with a weather barrier so that when it does rain like crazy, the water's not getting in and sitting in the wall. All right. But Texas, really, it's one of those zones where worrying about water that the biggest problem we have with water is bulk water when it rains. The second problem is wicking. Your house is probably wood on concrete. As long as your wood is separated from the concrete with some sort of plastic barrier, you won't have any wicking. The third is vapor. Vapor is only a problem if you don't have a system to dry out the air. Since you're using air conditioning most of the time, 8 to 10 months a year, you're air conditioning, you're going to be able to take care of vapor, no problem. Put in bath fans, use a stove fan when you're cooking. And generally speaking, that's all the science you need. It's called 1980 science. So if you want to get some insulation there to protect you from the sun, to reduce the amount of air conditioning you're using, do you understand the relationship here now? You insulate, you reduce the need for air conditioning. Now you're not drying out the air as much. Make sure you got bathroom fans and you should be fine. Okay, cheers. Well, that was a long answer. It's not easy though, because that's the relationship we're talking about. You want to add more insulation. Well, you got to manage that because now you're reducing the need for your heating and cooling system. And that is what's drying out the air, right? So you got to be careful. You can't just do one. So if you got an older house, 78, right? You might not even have fans in the bathroom. And you get away with that for all these years, right? Maybe open the window when you shower. Or maybe you just don't give a darn because there's no insulation in that house and it dried out just fine because you had the air conditioning pumping. Or maybe it didn't have an air seal and the wind blew right through and dried it out. But now you want to seal it up. Now you got to deal with all your water on the inside of the house issues. How many people live there? Is it 1,000 square feet and you got 4 kids and 9 dogs and 2 cats? That's a lot of vapor. All right, do you spend all day long boiling soup and cooking pasta? I don't know. But you got to manage the relationship with your moisture and your insulation. Always do both. You can't just make one change. You got to change 2. So if you're going to over insulate your basement, get a dehumidifier. If you're going to insulate the outside of your house, make sure you got good air conditioning. Add bathroom fans. Increase the velocity of the bathroom fan. Add air exchanger. Do something. You got to manage both at the same time, or you will run into problems. Unforeseen. You won't even see it coming. It'll just sneak up and bite you in the ass. All right. Okay. La 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 la. I want to get foam insulation from my 1972 Western Pennsylvania split entry because I can clearly hear my neighbors. Is getting foam insulation a good idea? All right. So, um, you have sound transfer from one neighbor to the next. Okay. And you want to get foam insulation, assuming, okay, so you're assuming that you're going to, I'm assuming you mean spray foam because I've seen videos on this with spray foam. Oh, it's so nice and quiet. Yeah. Here's all my experience in sound insulation. If you have air leakage in that wall assembly that you spray foam so diligently, you're going to hear the noise just the same after you spent all the money. Every wall has a window in it. God bless them. And most of these windows are actually really leaky. Around the flange to the jamb, or the window assembly itself is designed to function in some way. And so it has little fuzzy hairs that open and close together, but sound travels through that like a bloody highway. If you don't manage the air movement through the window, whatever money you can spend $1 million soundproofing the wall, put a $10 window on there, and you're going to hear exactly the same thing. All right. So, first, I would take a look at, oh, you remember. So, send me a picture. Tell me how your window operates. Okay. This would be the key. Josh, if you show me a picture of your wall assembly, proximity to the house, show me a picture of the window. Explain to me if it's single hung or double hung or whatever it is, and then I can recommend a solution. Okay. Even take off a piece of the window trim if you have a casing. All right. Then see if there's spray foam around the window to the jamb. See if that is air sealed. Okay. That's another major problem. But generally speaking, if you want to fix your sound from one house to the next, 3 things you got to do, maybe 4. Number 1, change your window. If it's not a bedroom, you don't have to have a fire escape window. So you can just put in a window with a solid pane of glass, right? If you want fresh air, that's another issue. But you can also go with a casement, right? The kind that cranks open. Casements, you can buy a good one with 3-point multi-lock that has 3 gaskets and seals up real tight. All right, call up somebody from Allside who installs for them. They'll get you a good window. Make sure you foam seal around that window when you install it. Make sure you use a little rubber gasket thing around the wall plugs because there's air passing through that to the outside that'll transfer sound. And then if you really want to spend money on the house, the best investment after that is to just add another layer of drywall on the inside of the house and use 5/8 commercial drywall. Okay. And if you really want to go to the next step, you can tear the drywall off and you can put in more insulation and you can find gaps in your wall assembly and you can plug it up and then put insulation back. But generally speaking, if there's a neighbor screaming 3 feet away in another house and there's a hole in your wall as big as my finger, you're going to hear that conversation. That's the wonderful thing about sound. It's even more creative than water and finding a way into your house. All right. Oh, and the 4th thing you can do is buy earplugs. I almost forgot to mention that. Those are great. Get some of those sound deadening headphones and then plug your TV into it. You can just sit there and relax all night. And, Armageddon can be going on. I mean, you wouldn't even notice. All right. And they're a lot cheaper than spray foam in your wall and rebuilding your room. My uncle has a rental house. This is Scott saying here. His laundry room is in a basement next to the furnace. Sure. Basement 2/3 finished. Okay. It appears that never put a hose dryer vent. There's lint everywhere through the house. Any tips on cleaning? Oh, cleaning's easy. Like it's going to be probably a little greasy at this point, but cleaning's easy. I'm going to say this in relation to building science. That's a source of moisture for the house. You want to be real careful of making a change like ducting that source of moisture to the house without identifying whether or not your house needs a source of moisture. Some houses are so dry, it's a problem. And if you actually start venting that dryer for the first time, you can change the way all of the systems in the house function. Things might hydrate and expand, and then doors start sticking, and you might be surprised. Have a little bit of fun with that, but you might want to actually put in an air exchanger so that you can, or a humidifier even to counterbalance that. Or things might just start cracking all of a sudden if you're not constantly putting that moisture in there from doing laundry every week. You could be surprised. Okay. Here's another question. Might be a very general question. With your experience, what is your advice to manage stress when you're working on a project with a plan and run into major unexpected blocks or delays? Oh, that's easy. Here's my system. Um, take a hammer. Just joking. Listen, every project is going to have stress, delays, unexpected problems. Okay. The best way to manage that is to know it's going to happen so that when it happens, it's not stressful. Right? It's like if you told someone, "Hey, I'm going to slap you in the face in 3, 2, 1," and then you slap them. They don't go, "Hey, why'd you slap me?" They knew it was coming. They were just dumb enough to stand there. So, really, it's about managing your own expectations. You won't get freaked out if you know bad things are going to happen. Uh, Here's the secret, though: when you have money on a project and you have a problem, you pay to solve the problem. If you're trying to do something and it's a Hail Mary pass and you're out of funds and you run into a problem, no, that's stressful. That's when stress finds you, right? That's when you start taking materials back to Home Depot for refunds, trying to finish off the project to get to your next payday. Um, yeah, that's a brand new world. But understand problems are going to happen. Jason Pereira has a 1960s Ontario home. He went to add insulation in the attic where there might be asbestos. What do I do? Okay, so here's what I do. I add the insulation to the attic. Wear a mask. Insulation in attics from the 1960s is usually vermiculite. It's like little crystalline subjects, right? And it's buried underneath other insulation that they probably put in the 70s or 80s. And so you're just going to bury it in some more insulation. All right. You're a homeowner. You don't have to test it. You don't have to disclose it. You don't have to find out for sure. Ignorance is bliss. If you're not sure, don't worry about it. Just put on a mask and blow more insulation on top and get to the thickness that you're looking for. The minute you take it and test it and find out if it's there, then you're going to be responsible to clean it. So stay ignorant, my friend. Ignorance is bliss. Yeah, that's not the advice a lot of people. Like, some people get offended with that, and I'm like, why? Why work up? It's in your ceiling. You're not breathing it, right? I mean, you're separated from all that. Remember, asbestos is only dangerous when it's broken and it's fine particles floating in the air, and you're not living in your attic, so don't worry about it. The secret here is, though, when you do go into the attic to do the work, go into the attic and close the door again, or go into the attic with the hose and then tape off a plastic bag, and then or create negative air pressure in the room that you got the bin with the insulation bags and stuff, right? Do negative air so that the fibers from the attic aren't pouring into the rest of the house. Okay, that's the least I can do is give you some advice. Okay, Benjamin, he's got a garage renovation update. Love to send you all the termite damage I found. Right? Okay, what are your thoughts? Well, appreciate it. I love termite damage. It's fascinating. It's easy to solve and it's easy to prevent. I just wish everybody would use the right products to prevent termite damage in the first place. But this is what happens, guys. When you have wood that gets wicking, you know, the tall tree program, wicking wood is wet wood and bugs love it because they can eat it really easy. Dry wood is not as appetizing. It's a lot more work, right? Termites are a lot like thieves, right? They walk down a neighborhood and they go, hey, he's got security. No, he doesn't. We'll break into that house. Termites are the same way. They're going, oh, that's really, really hard going. Hey, Fred, what's it like over there? This guy's got a wet wall, man. And they all go there. That's how it works. Ants are the same way. What are your thoughts on opening a ceiling in a finished basement versus drywall ceiling? Oh, an open ceiling in a finished basement. Well, it's noisy as hell, first of all. But, you know, if you're just using it as a recreational space, then yeah, go ahead. There's no rule that says you got to drywall the ceiling in a rec room, in a partially finished basement. That's what we call partially finished. And go ahead, right? And you might later date put in a drop ceiling. We got that video coming up in a few weeks. You're gonna love it. A drop ceiling is a great solution if you aren't feeling that DIY-ish, but it can also save you a lot of money. The only thing is it's really noisy. Better to put no ceiling than put in a ceiling without soundproofing. That's my thoughts. Existential Paint wants to know, whoa, what did I do? What did I do? I don't know how to use a mouse. Uh-oh. Come on, baby. Here we go. I'm back. I'm ready to start putting insulation in my home. Tennessee. Any difference which side the paper is on for the ceiling? Yeah, the side facing you. Paper-backed insulation, the paper is actually somewhat of a moisture retardant layer. It's not a vapor barrier, but it's a moisture retardant layer. And it slows down the transfer of moisture, and that's nice. But it also helps keep everything nice and clean and tidy. And the idea is, if this is your cavity and you put the insulation in, the paper's underneath, it has little wings on it. That's for stapling into the wood that you see. And it's that simple. Piece of cake, you're going to love it. Just be careful when you're putting paper wrap insulation. You don't just jam it in. Kind of put it in a curl. Start it in the bottom and then roll it in gently. And make sure all your four corners are actually making contact with the other pieces of insulation, because the paper keeps you from seeing the contact. So you want to, airspace is a problem going into an attic, especially in Tennessee. Jeff is asking me a question. Hey, Jeff. Hi, Jeff. You mentioned you have a video on reusing wood floors and removing the old nails. Do you have any idea what the title might be? Yeah, this is a title, no, but it's on our other channel, and it's back when I was young and I had hair. It was the house that had the fire. Now, I didn't do a step-by-step on that, but we did reclaim the hardwood floor from a 1905 home. We just pulled the boards, pulled all the little spikes out, cleaned them up, and then we reinstalled all of those boards because we moved walls and stuff. And then we took all the wood from the kitchen and used it to finish off the living room and tiled the kitchen. It's there. It was cool. It's I think it's a 1905. I think it says something about 1905 or fire damage. It's like one of the first of the 5 videos in the history of that other channel, Reality Renovision. If you're not there, go check it out. There's a lot of interesting content there that is not DIY. Okay. Yinzer is mentioning here that it's a nailed floor. That's why he's going with the subfloor on his engineered hardwood. Okay. In that case, yeah, now I understand your subfloor needs. That sucks. I'd actually, if I was you, I'd remove the hardwood. The only problem there is, depending on the age of the home and the technology they use, they might have used the hardwood tongue and groove as the deck and then built all the walls on top of it. What was the age of the house that he was talking about there? Was it 1905 or something? Yeah, I think you're screwed. You're right. You're going to have to go and add another layer of flooring. Yeah, sorry about that, but you're right. Okay. It said floating floor. It's not floating if you're putting nails in it, guys. That's the key, right? Floating floor is no nails. Help a brother out. All right. Okay. Tony's got a cinder block, 1960s house. No insulation in the walls. No big surprise. How best to insulate these exterior walls? Injection foam, blown in, exterior insulation. Okay, Tony, you're a classic guy here. You got a 1960s house made out of cinder block, and I don't know where you live, so I can't answer the question. Got to help me out, guys. I need to know where you live. There are cinder block homes in Ottawa, and there's cinder block homes in Miami. And I'll guarantee you my answer is going to be completely different depending on where you are. So let me know, and when I get back down to it, Tony, we'll figure that out. Okay, John Mack. I have a 100-year-old house in PEI. New foundation. That's Prince Edward Island, Canada. And for all of you folks who don't know where PEI is, new foundation. Okay. You have a 100-year-old house with a new foundation. Wow, that must have been work. What is best for the ceiling for the basement? Main level floor is hardwood. Worried about spills going through to the basement, which happens now. Well, that's what happens, right? You're out there having a bit of screech, doing some drinking, kissing cod, and you're pouring your booze all over the floor. I get it. I understand the dilemma. I'm just joking. If you got pets and kids, that's all it takes. Here's the deal. If you have spills and stuff going through the floor and you're worried about putting up a ceiling, you really got 2 options. One, no, you got 1 option. The best option there is actually drop ceiling, because then if you get a bad ceiling stain or something, you can just switch out the tile, right? Like, that's the best option. You got access. Yeah, I would if that's your number one concern is all the spills that are going on, then I would put in a drop ceiling. All right. Or you put in a drywall ceiling, and you spray texture it, and you paint it with an oil-based paint. Okay. And then when the spills come through, they'll make the drywall wet, and then the drywall will dry again because the house will just dry itself out through conduction and convection. So it doesn't matter. And then the oil-based paint on the ceiling will keep the stain from showing up because it's non-permeable, so it won't actually stain. And then even if it does, it's oil-based. So you can just put another layer of stain sealer over top of it before you sell the house again. Those are the only two options. All right, next. Looking. Jules Fox, welcome to the Money in the Bank. Jules, happy to have you join us. It is 4:41. I'm going to have to go more rapid fire here. I got to start moving if I'm going to get through these questions. My goodness, I don't want to keep Lori here too long. Oh, made a mess. See, I should have been. I think I'm from PEI. Got a drinking problem. Can't get it in my mouth. All right. That's a throwback to Airplane, the movie, for all of you who want to know. If you haven't seen that movie, shame on you. You should watch that. That'll change your outlook on life. Yinzer's got interior lead paint. Should I sand, strip, or just cover, stain, and paint over? I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this once. I want everybody to listen. Ready? Lead paint is more dangerous than, how shall we put this politely so I don't get politically incorrect? Christina's probably flipping out just, okay. Lead paint is more dangerous than asbestos and a 2-year-old going for a walk on a freeway combined. Okay? For the love of God, don't touch that stuff. If you want to do anything with lead paint, just paint over top of it. Even if you're tearing the trims out of the house, negative air, all right? Lead paint cartridge filters for your mask, because an N95 is still going to let you die. That stuff is so toxic, you might as well just jump in the vat and come out Joker. I mean, it is nasty, all right? Man, most things that we deal with in homes are not dangerous to homeowners because you deal with it on occasion, once in a while, a little bit, right? Even a child can eat a little bit of lead paint. But if you're going to sand it, it's in your house for years. And I am guaranteeing you are going to die. So don't do it. And if you have done it in the past, I'll send you flowers. Sean, we want to avoid opening the drywall of every room at this stage because it would increase our scope of work. Makes sense. I get it. You don't want to open the drywall. You want to try to find a way to insulate the house. I get it. Here's the thing. Most exterior walls are 2 sheets of drywall. That's 1 taper joint, 2 coats, simple, right? Down the middle, and then corners. You only have 4 joints to fix, and you can insulate the entire exterior wall of a room. It'll cost you $30 to $40 a room to change the wall out, and then the money to insulate. So for, let's say, $300 with a gallon of paint. I'm just saying, it's an option, and you can do it 1 room at a time. Don't be afraid. It's only drywall, guys. All right. Foil face poly ISO was your plan with Sean. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Benjamin has a garage reno update. I'd love to send you all the termite damage. Yeah, I know. So send me pictures in the forum, dude. That'd be great. We need a video. Okay. I'm getting comments and I don't even remember what we were on. Okay. We got a super chat? Where's the super chat? I am so far behind in the comments. I can't even stand it.
From Anton Poe.
Anton Poe. There it is. Want to install a ceiling fan. Does it need a new box before mounting? Well, I'm glad you asked. Anton, let's just assume that this is a floor joist, and over here you got a floor joist. Okay? And you want to put a box for a ceiling fan. You need to, that's right, put a piece of 2x4 at least nailed through the joist into that 2x4, mount that box to that 2x4 underneath with screws. Okay? To make sure that you have enough carrying capacity for that box for the ceiling fan. Because what people like to do is they like to cheat. And they'll have a joist here and they'll have the box and they'll put a couple of screws and the box is moving, it's flexible. And flexible moving boxes on side mounted screws are subject to shear strength. And that's why fans fall on people. And approximately 8,000 people go to the hospital every year in North America due to fan injury because of improper installation. So don't be that guy. All right. I love it when I said approximately 8,000 people because I have no idea. I know there's a bunch.
There's a question from.
I know the more than 8,000 people go to the hospital because they got hit in the head with a baseball. So I'm sure there's a lot of people that go to the hospital for fans. Anyway, go ahead, honey. Talk to me.
Question from new member Yoon.
Yes, Yoon. We got a new member. This is a 50s house in Eastern MA. Does that mean Maryland or Massachusetts? No, MAS is Massachusetts. That must be Maryland. The basement was finished with 2x4 frame and quarter-inch wood panels. Quarter-inch wood panels. Oh, yeah, paneling. Okay, got it. No insulation. And you want to insulate. Okay, great. Rip off the paneling and insulate. And then since you're in Maryland, you probably are going to need vapor barrier because you're up in that weather where you're going to be heating. If you're not sure, just contact your local building office and say, hey, is it part of code around here to use plastic in our basements? Vapor barrier. And they'll just say yes or no. And if they want details on who you are and where you live, just answer the damn question. Okay? Tell them to mind their own damn business. It's up to you if you want to get a permit. I'm not going to tell you to get one. Love of God. We got people building houses all over the country who get permits and inspections and they still fail. I don't know why they want to get so hard on homeowners who are just doing basic, simple processes like installing insulation. It's not necessary. As long as they're practicing and they don't know what they're doing, I don't know why they want to make sure we know what we're doing. All right. Beachwalker just changed a very drafty cold sliding window to a plain picture window. Cost savings for sure. So much more warmer windows. Okay, that's a statement. I'm looking for questions. Oh my God, that's pardon? Jennifer Will. I'm gonna scroll down a little bit because I feel like I got to catch up. Where's Jennifer?
She's about 90% down.
90% down. Love it. I'm not sure what that means as I'm scrolling. I'm just looking for the word Jennifer. Hey, cheers, Rizzy. Okay. Wow.
I can read it out to you if you want.
Sure, because I can't find it.
Can we use cedar wood directly on the studs in our pantry rather than drywall and cedar?
Yes. You can. So the question was, can you use cedar instead of drywall on a wall? And yeah, it's part of a wall assembly. Now, here's the thing. One of the reasons we use drywall is because some wall assemblies have insulation in them and drywall gets taped. Cedar is going to have gaps and is going to allow those fibers with air passing through to blow in and blow around. And you're not going to have an air barrier. So you're going to end up with a draftier wall. Is that a problem? I don't know. You have to tell me. Because in some houses, having a drafty wall is a problem. And in some houses, having a drafty wall is a blessing. Believe that or not. Now, air quality can be affected by fiberglass insulation blowing around. So that's an issue you got to have to consider for yourself. But if you have mineral wool or no insulation, then, knock your socks off. That's fine. Now, listen, guys, we're down to the last, I'm going to say 2 or 3 minutes here. Okay. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully this is helpful. Keep this in your catalog. Maybe watch the first hour again some night when you've had a few drinks and you're spilling them on the floor. You want to have a laugh and entertain yourself with some knowledge. This is good. I want to know real quick. I'm going to do a survey now. All right. If building technology and all that kind of stuff is interested, are you interested in going to school and learning about all this stuff vis-a-vis Jeff on Live? Because I can spend a show, we can talk nothing but moisture. We can spend a show talking nothing but thermal. We can spend a show talking nothing but structure. And we can spend a show talking nothing but drainage and soil and all that kind of composition. And we can spend a show talking about bathroom science and waterproofing. And let me know. If you want, say yay or nay, we'll probably put a community post out and just get an idea. I have no idea if this is information you want to tackle or if you'd rather just learn how to do an accent wall like tonight's video. Let me do a shameless plug. Tonight, we have a video coming out. I'm actually doing an accent wall. You know, you've seen all these people on the internet everywhere, and they're doing great finished carpentry accents, really cool designs and stuff. And they do time lapse and or just before and afters. And nobody knows how the hell it's getting done. Well, tonight we're tackling one of those projects. I'm teaching you all my tips and tricks in an A to Z video on how to do an accent wall for dummies so that everybody can have one of these projects done in their home. There's a lot of really good tips and tricks and strategies to follow in there so that you can be successful. And you know what? Just a little bit of a teaser. I don't use any caulking in the carpentry. It is a super quick process that you can do in one day. I'm telling you right now, you're going to love it. Thanks everybody for coming. Sorry it's been a while. I mean, man, our last live show was early December. So it is technically once a month, but it's been a bit too long. Like I said, we're on the road. We are going to keep finding lovely folks like here at Toes in the Sand in St. Augustine to donate their sound studio so we can do our broadcast. And that is awesome. Cheers for your help today, guys. Really appreciate it. And yeah, hit us up. Looking forward to it. I think tonight I'm going to be at home. You know what? What the hell? I'm going to make tonight a, what do they call that? When I'm live in the chat, when the video comes up? There's a special thing we do. It's like a premiere. That's what it is. I'm going to do a premiere on the video tonight. It's about an hour long. If I didn't get to your question here today, just jump in the chat on tonight's video, guys. I'll be in the premiere and I can answer your questions there, okay? All right. Don't want you to go in too long without an answer. And don't forget, if you're a member, you can jump into the forum. And I am up to date on that and loving it. I wake up every morning, grab myself 4 gallons of coffee, and sit there and watch the sunrise in Florida. It is a beautiful thing, and I answer all your questions. You guys are the best. We couldn't do this without your help. So we appreciate every single one of you and everything you bring to the channel. Thank you, Michelle, for joining me today and keeping me on the straight and narrow. That was awesome. Loving these comments. Guys, cheers. Listen, I got to pack up because I got 8 minutes to tear this down. And then I told Lori I'd be done for 5. And so I've got to really hustle my butt. All right. This has been great. We will do this again soon. I'll put another community post together as soon as I have another date booked. We're traveling around. We got our 5th wheel. So we're leaving St. Augustine in a couple of days. We're going to be more in the Lakeland area for a few weeks and then doing trade shows. So hopefully I'll have another live show after the trade show and I'll be able to share all kinds of wonderful, new, exciting things for you. And looking forward to doing that then. All right. Cheers. Jeff out. Now, this will be the end of the video, but I'm going to need a few seconds to do all this technical stuff because I don't know how to end a stream. Boom. Yeah.